On this episode of Infinity Sports, we're talking about Sully's big board. It's finally out. You guys have been checking it out for a week, comparing him to the big guys, although Sully's the only big guy we care about. We're going to get to that right after this break. Welcome to Infinity Sports. I'm Wayne G. I'm joined, as always, by Sully. What's up?
Hey, what's good?
And Nick P, a.k.a. Nick Kellerman, a.k.a. Nick Bayless. What's going on?
Well, I don't get the big guy connotation, so I'll just be little guy Nick Kellerman. You know what I mean? It's that's fine. We got big guy Sully on the big board today.
We do, and like I said, I thought it was funny if those people who are following the show, thank you so much, and we're getting more and more subscribers every week. You obviously saw the graphic I had where I was Batman, Sully was Robin, and we had Nick as the Joker. And I thought about how previous co-hosts, and I'm not going to name any names who might have unfriended me, would not have liked being called Robin.
Would have hated it, honestly.
Yeah.
Like he would have been madly upset.
Yeah, I think actually, so Nick doesn't know, but I used to introduce myself and say, hey, I'm the host of the show, Wayne G, joined as always by, and that actually made him upset. Like he complained about it off the air, like, hey, I hate that you call yourself the host. I was like, all right, well, what am I?
What'd you call me then?
I actually hate it too. So let's stay away.
Okay.
Oh,
well,
God.
I'm just
again, the more hate, the more I want to do it. So
yeah.
I did mention that we're going to talk about Sully's big board today. We've been waiting for it to come out. A lot of anticipation. Before we jump into that, I did want to mention we talked about it on our website. Visit us on Facebook. The links are to the lower right here. You can see us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We drop stuff all the time. And I dropped the, Cam Newton is now the fourth highest paid running back in the NFL. After the $14 million contract, it got a lot of activity. We've got, I think, like 4,000 impressions, and a lot of people don't like it, but I feel a lot better. I told Nick this off the air. I feel a lot better now knowing it's just $5 million, and that the other $9 million he has to be like all pro and win the Super Bowl and stuff. So that's not going to happen. I don't mind. $5 million is a good price for him as a backup.
I mean, you should have known that's like kind of what was going to. That's how most of these contracts are working out anyway. A lot of their money is based on bonuses, but still, nonetheless, I mean, I think it's a gross overpay. I really do. Like, I'm not going to lie. I think a better quarterback could have had, and if the plan is to draft a quarterback, then do you really want Cam Newton as like your bridge? Like, is he the guy you want teaching your quarterback an offense and like even being your quarterback until the next one's ready? Like, I don't know. So I don't love the signing, truthfully. I don't think it has any positives.
Yeah, I like it. I can't say I like it, but I don't hate it. I think New England really liked Cam Newton from all the reports, at least local reports. It sounds like, well, they liked him early on because they were winning. I mean, people forget the Patriots started 3-2. Cam got COVID, and then the season completely changed after that, right? Like, I mean, things changed for New England very shortly thereafter, and I think they saw the potential that they had with Cam. And I mean, honestly, they lost that game in Seattle because Cam wasn't playing. Right, like, I mean, everyone said if Cam was in that game, or no, I'm sorry, the Chiefs game, right? It was the Chiefs game or something like that.
Yeah, Brian Hoyer as a starter.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Everyone was saying, well, if Cam was in this game, we could have beat the Chiefs, and I think it was worth the flyer. I also, it wasn't shocking to me because I knew all along that like Belichick and the front office really liked Cam, the team liked Cam, they were all behind him and supporting him. But it doesn't limit their ability to go out and do something else, find another quarterback, and create sort of like a competitive situation going into camp, right? They'll draft a quarterback, but I think that they will bring on another veteran guy and make them compete.
I think that their plan A is – I don't think they're going to draft a quarterback, and I don't think Cam is going to be grooming anybody. I think Belichick likes him because his work ethic is unprecedented. I mean, that's a thing I'll say about him is that Cam works really hard. And
he's a former MVP. He's a former MVP. I mean, the guy has been to a Super Bowl.
And he's in the film room a lot. I think that their plan A all along has been try to get Jimmy G out of San Francisco. But San Francisco's playing hardball because they know that that's their plan A, right? And they're like,
yeah.
You're going to give up a couple first rounders to get this guy. And I think it's just they're butting heads right now.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would agree Jimmy G's worth a couple first rounders. No. So, yeah.
No. They could go get Jacoby Brissett, though.
Hey-o.
There's a name. There's a name for you.
Wayne's talked about how he likes Jameis Winston in McDaniel's system. So
I like Jameis, yeah.
Yeah, Jameis was in McDaniel's system. So,
I mean, I'm a huge Jameis Winston fan because he won me a lot of money when he played at Florida State. He covered every spread all year long.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that
was a tremendous season.
Yeah.
You mean his freshman one, right? Obviously.
Yeah. Freshman one.
Yeah, so speaking of the draft, today's the big board episode. As I mentioned, Sully puts together a big board. We already did a mock draft, an early mock draft. And so this is kind of our Sully's top 32 prospects in the draft. Not necessarily where they're going to be picked, but how he feels they are as a prospect. Like, you might be the 7th ranked prospect, but go 31st. I mean, who knows? It depends on how the draft plays out.
Yeah.
But we're going to go into that. We're going to tackle each segment as an 8-person segment, 1 through 8, 9 through 16, and so on. Sully's going to touch on a couple people, and then I have a couple questions. I don't know if Nick has any questions. I know he's a big college football fan as well. But we'll jump right into it. The first segment is players 1 through 8. Which is Trevor Lawrence, Penei Sewell, Kyle Pitts, Micah Parsons, Jamar Chase, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Jalen Waddle. And I'll let Sully take it from here.
Well, I mean, the top 5 doesn't change really from my last big board. The only thing that changed is Kyle Pitts moved up a bit. And then other than that, I think him and Micah Parsons switched spots for me. Other than that, nothing has changed. Oh, I lied. Justin Fields has fallen out of said spot. The real shock there, I guess, is not having Zach Wilson in that top 5. Most are going to have him there. I don't. Most people have him there just because quarterbacks get valued that high. You're not going to tell me Zach Wilson's a better football player than Penei Sewell, Kyle Pitts, Micah Parsons, or Jamar Chase. I think he's a fantastic elite blue chip quarterback and things like that. But I truthfully don't think he's a better football player than those guys. That top 5. What's that?
What was that?
Can you hear Sully? I can't hear him.
Oh.
Yeah, I hear Sully.
Yeah. Anyway, so those top 5 right there, like I said, I think they're elite blue chip players in this draft. I would do anything I could to get one of those 5 guys on my football team. I think they're all special.
Nick has any thoughts on the top 8?
No, I mean, I completely see where Sully was going with those top 8 guys. I wouldn't really change anything. I think because quarterbacks have such a heavy emphasis nowadays, like, it's probably, to Sully's point, not uncommon to see, somebody have Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson back to back on a big board, right? Like, I think that's probably going to be pretty common. But to Sully's point, like, if you're going overall football player, there's a lot of guys to me that are just way further ahead than Zach Wilson.
My first question about the first 8 is Micah Parsons, who you had at 4th. PFF has him 6th. McShay has him 4th as well. But Kuiper has him 10th, and Daniel Jeremiah has him 10th. And I'm curious why it's such a big disparity. Is it just the quote-unquote character issues that are coming out? And what are the chances that he falls outside of the top 10 in the draft?
Well, the chances actually seem to be growing, which I don't personally understand. But, like, I mean, the guy has no comp ever. Like, there's not really a player that kind of has been able to move like him at his size. So it's pretty much impossible to comp the guy. I mean, I'd say a better covering Junior Seau isn't a terrible comparison. Like, he plays the same way. Like, he wants to move downhill. He wants to attack, and he is deadly when he does so. But also, I mean, the guy moves like a deer in space. Like, he's extremely nimble. He's able to cover. He's smart in space too. He understands coverage and routes. It's got to be the coverage or the character issues. And also, like, me and Nick got into an argument about this, but the positional value and just where he's going to go, like, tackles are going to go ahead of him. I think corners, that's the argument we had. I think both corners have a shot to go ahead of him. All 4 pass catching threats have a shot to go ahead of him. 4 quarterbacks have a shot to go ahead of him. So at that point, it's like, that's where you can see how a linebacker drops. That's not to say, again, he's the best defensive player in this draft. But it's just kind of where he plays. If he was an edge player, he'd be a top 4 player. There wouldn't be a question that he gets picked there. But like middle linebacker, it's just tough. Now he is a 3-down guy, but still middle linebacker, it's tough to justify taking over quarterback, tackle, wide receiver, things like that.
Yeah, and I think for Parsons, for me, and obviously I have somewhat of a bias because I'm a Penn State guy, but being a Penn State guy, I mean, I can hands down say that he's the best defensive player I've ever seen come out of the program as far as like overall skill set, maybe not what he contributed to the program, but just like what he brings to a football team. And I think when you have a generational type talent like Parsons, it justifies in the same way that it justifies taking a guy like Kyle Pitts, a tight end, as potentially a top 5 pick. The same way it justifies taking a Saquon Barkley as the 2nd overall pick at running back. To me, Parsons is that level of talent coming from a middle linebacker position.
I mean, Aaron Curry, I think, he went 4th overall, I think, to Seattle. Now, granted, he didn't work out, but like we've seen it before where like these – I'll tell you to the day that I die, Aaron Curry is probably one of the best linebacking prospects I've ever graded ever. It was stupid watching him play.
Well, Luke Kuechly was top 10, wasn't he?
Well, he went like 8, I think. Yeah. I think Aaron Curry was the last one that went top 5. And I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's the last like true linebacker who went top 5. And that didn't work out. Now, granted, that doesn't mean you don't draft Micah Parsons because I think Micah Parsons is a completely different player. But like, we talked about Isaiah Simmons and his similarities to Micah Parsons, for a little bit, I think last episode, and he slid a little bit. I think Micah Parsons may have a similar slide. He's not going to fall, but I think he may have a similar slide, especially this year, just because 4 quarterbacks have a shot going in the top 10. Like that's going to force him down a lot, I think.
Yeah. And keep in mind too, Parsons is, Simmons, I like the Simmons comparison, but the thing with Parsons is, he's not as tall as Simmons, but you could almost play him as a strong safety, right? Like you could play him as a safety in the pros. He's got that level. Parsons.
Well, I think you could play them both as a safety. Simmons did play a lot of safety.
Right.
Parsons is a much better linebacker right now.
Right.
Than Isaiah Simmons is probably now. Micah Parsons just coming in. Because Isaiah Simmons' biggest plus was his coverage ability, not his actually attacking the ball. They're separate, in that sense, but they do kind of have the same just athletic ability.
Yeah, and also, Wayne, I know because I know we want to move on to the other segments, but I wanted to talk about too, just Kyle Pitts, and it was really more so to just like toot his horn, right? Because I do
Kyle Pitts horn any day of the week. Let's do it.
Because I just think that it's like it's unprecedented, in my opinion, to have like such a deep wide receiver class. And I think every analyst, everybody, Sully, you'd agree that this is a pretty deep wide receiver class. But the best receiving prospect is probably a tight end. I think it's insane. Pitts is a matchup nightmare. I think he changes a team's offense wherever he goes. We've never seen a player at the position like Kyle Pitts before.
Well, what makes him a tight end in the sense that like Calvin Johnson was 6'6", 240. So what makes Kyle Pitts a tight end instead of a receiver?
Just that he's listed there. Yeah.
I would say, but his blocking ability too, though.
It's not terrible. You're not going to put him in line. Right. I wouldn't play him in line, but he's a guy who's not afraid to block. Let's put it that way. Like he's not like a dainty blocker. He's never going to be able to block, a defensive end one-on-one. That's not where you're going to want him. But again, the only thing that separates him from a tight end and a wide receiver is his designation. He's never going to play in line. He may, but he's never going to be asked to block. His matchup nightmare is if you play him with a cornerback, he's going to be too big for you. If you play him with a linebacker, he's going to be too fast for you. Plain and simple, he's a matchup nightmare.
If you double team by putting a linebacker and a corner or a safety on him, well, now all of a sudden you're leaving yourself real vulnerable to those slot type receivers that are so popular in the game right now. Pitts just does a lot for an offense.
He really does. He changes the team. You see all these guys too with Travis Kelce, breaking records for tight ends, and Darren Waller, just having monster games after monster game, and George Kittle, and Kyle Pitts is arguably more athletic than every one of these guys. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Like I said, I have him number 3 overall, which is absolutely insane to think as a tight end is number 3 overall.
When you mentioned the quarterbacks and Justin Fields, you had 7th behind Zach Wilson. all of the experts have basically Justin Fields behind Zach Wilson, except for PFF. I think PFF has Fields ahead of Wilson.
No, PFF has Wilson at 2.
Oh, do they? Okay. Yeah. So my question was really, what makes Zach Wilson the better quarterback prospect? And then if you were a general manager who says, I have to have Justin Fields, why are you saying that about him?
I mean, you're probably not.
Right.
To be fair, and I'm a big Justin Fields fan. I do want to come out and say that. It's just he's in a draft that's got, I think, like 2 really, really special guys in it. You're going to hear this a lot with a lot of players that come out now because of what Patrick Mahomes is doing, but Zach Wilson is extremely Patrick Mahomes-esque. He can throw the ball off of every platform and throw it deadly accurate off every platform. He's special at getting out of the pocket and making those secondary plays, but not wanting to run, and keeping his eyes downfield and seeing things that just other players don't see for the most part. Like, like Patrick Mahomes make throws that you're just like, no other quarterback can even attempt to make it or even see it. Zach Wilson has that ability in him and has shown flashes of that. Now, Justin Fields is stupid accurate as well. I mean, that's like his calling card, to be fair. He is one of the more accurate quarterbacks, like, honestly, we've seen in probably a little while. But I don't know. Everything I see out of him is slower. So he's not great at making decisions on the fly. When he gets out of the pocket, especially for a mobile guy, you would think he excels. He actually gets worse when he leaves the pocket. And in this day and age, and for the style of player he is, that's not a great thing. Also his offense in Ohio State was molly-whopping people, to say the least. Like, his wide receivers were running free. He never made throws that you were like into tight windows that you were like, wow, kind of shit like that. So it's not really what he's done to like hurt himself. It's just not what he's done to excel to that like elite level, in my opinion.
The second segment is obviously players 9 through 16. On these players, it starts off with Caleb Farley at 9, Devante Smith, Patrick Surtain, Travis Etienne, Trevin Moehrig, Jeremiah Owusu Karamoa, Kwity Paye, and Najee Harris at 16. So I guess again, take it away.
I guess the big shock here would be Devante Smith not being, in that other chunk and being the last out of the 4. I don't know. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I will not take him over these other guys. I understand what he's done in his production and things like that. But, I mean, he's also a 4-year player I believe he's 24 at the time of the draft. I'll have to check. But he's older. He's probably going to run slow. Not probably. He's going to run slower than every guy ahead of him. I don't know. He just doesn't have the physical tools that these other guys have. He's got the production, which you can't argue with. But, I mean, if you're going to look at Jalen Waddle and his 4.3 after an Achilles tear and things like that, and the way he moves on a football field and the downfield threat he is, and then try to convince me that Devante Smith is better, like, I'm gonna have a tough time with that. That doesn't mean Devante Smith is bad. I mean, I got the guy ranked 9th overall. Like, he's a stud. He's extremely Marvin Harrison-esque. But again, Marvin Harrison didn't do anything to wow anybody, I think. So, when you've got guys like Jamar Chase, who's a physical freak in nature, a Kyle Pitts, a Jalen Waddle, these guys are special guys. That's kind of really his only downtick, unfortunately, for Devante Smith.
Yeah, I would say that. I agree on Devante Smith. I mean, I've watched Smith a lot. I mean, how could you not watch him? Right, like this past season. I look at him as being a product of a very, very efficient Alabama offense. And I've always kind of viewed him as that. I mean, he was kind of the senior guy on that Alabama offense. So obviously, a lot of the plays were going to run through him, but he benefited a lot from the running game. He benefits a lot from the offensive pass protection that Mack Jones had at Alabama. I mean, I like Waddle better personally. Like if I'm a team and I'm drafting an undersized slot type receiver, I'm looking at Jalen Waddle ahead of Devante Smith. I mean, that's just that's my opinion on it.
Now, the question I had was regarding Patrick Surtain, who you have as 11th. Mel Kiper has him 15th. Daniel Jeremiah has him 14th. PFF has him 16th. So you're all kind of right in that 11 to 16 range. And I'm curious, first off, we have more tape on him than we have on Caleb Farley. So why is he ranked below Caleb Farley? And then secondly, what are the chances he's available in New England at 15?
Caleb Farley is a freak of nature at the cornerback position. That's why. Patrick Surtain put together, honestly, one of the best cornerback tapes we've seen in a really, really, really long time. Technically wise, I mean, he is ready to play football. You're going to put him in a defense, and you're really not going to be kind of worried about his technique in any way. The issue is he's not an elite athlete at the position. He's maybe going to run a 4.5, sub 4.5, which is not what you want at the cornerback position. Meanwhile, Caleb Farley is 6'2", 210. He's going to run a sub 4.3 most likely. And he's just a legit freak of nature on the outside, and also does a lot of these technique things great. But he has the ability to gamble on some things because he can make up some speed that other players just can't, Patrick Surtain being one of them. I don't see Patrick Surtain falling to the Patriots at 15. His tape and his ability are just too special, in my opinion. I value cornerbacks extremely highly. The NFL has shown that they value cornerbacks extremely. He's a better prospect than C.J. Henderson, and C.J. Henderson just went 9 overall. So I expect Caleb Farley to go kind of in that same range, to be honest with you. If it's not a team that's picking there, it'll be a team that's trading up to get him. So,
yeah, I like Surtain. I like Surtain a lot, and I'll tell you why. Because of the volume of tape that we have on Surtain, I like him over Farley. I get what you're saying about Farley's athleticism, but the thing, and I hate to say this, but the thing that always sort of sways me in these sort of conversations is the fact that he played at Alabama and he went up against elite receivers. Elite college offenses his entire career at Alabama. So that's what sways me a little bit. I look at Surtain as being like a guy who's, to your point, NFL ready. You plop him in tomorrow, he's ready to cover some of the baddest guys out there for most teams' receiving corps.
I mean, he's really, really exceptional too. I mean, he's played – I'm looking at some stuff now. He's played 662 snaps in press over the past 2 seasons, in press man.
Right.
And that's 200 more snaps than anybody else in college. The kid is tested, ready to play football. I mean, you're going to get a player that can play, honestly. Now, you wouldn't love to put him there because he's so physical, but he can play in the slot and has played in the slot extremely effectively. So, I mean, he's just a guy who I really love. It's more like Caleb Farley is just, again, he's just if you were to build a cornerback, it looks like Jalen Ramsey. It looks like Caleb Farley. It looks like these guys are 6'2", super long, 210, can run a 4.2 in a blink of an eye, can move their hips smooth. Like that's just it.
My favorite offensive player, I think, in this draft is Travis Etienne because he's so exciting to watch. I feel like every time he has the ball in his hands, I feel like something special is going to happen. I feel like I'm watching Barry Sanders. I mean, obviously not as good as Barry Sanders, but Barry was going to electrify you with something he was going to do. And I feel like Etienne does that as well. Now, you have him as 12th. I think that's fair. Mel Kiper doesn't have him on the big board at all. PFF has him 39th. McShay has him 22nd. Pretty much everyone has him below Najee Harris. So, I mean, is it just the running back value? Because, I mean, Saquon Barkley was the 2nd overall pick, right? I mean, why is he rated so low on people's big board?
Well, first of all, Wayne. Yeah. Thank you.
These guys aren't Saquon Barkley. And I love Travis Etienne. I've tooted his horn for a really, really, really long time. These guys aren't Saquon as like a running. Nobody is, in this draft. Travis Etienne does a lot really well, but he also does a lot not well. So, he has a tendency to, because he is a home run threat every time he touches the ball, he has that ability to run laterally and kind of kill and dead a play that could get 3 yards, and then he runs laterally and, gets -1 or 2. And that's the kind of thing that's going to have to stop in the NFL. But, I mean, he's just special. I mean, you watch the kid play and you can see he's special. He is 0 to 100 in his first step. And that's a scary, scary weapon to have. He's incredibly good at catching the ball. I think he's a player who, even if he doesn't get 20 rushes a game, you're going to want to feed him 8 to 9 catches a game and things like that. So even if he gets, 15 touches total and it's, 10 rushes and 6 passes, that's going to be his role, but I bet you he gets 100 yards out of those and things like that. So, he's got that ability to just, as a chess piece, to change an offense. Like when he's on the field and you have to account for him. And if you put your middle linebacker on him and your middle linebacker is not Devin White or Devante Davis or somebody like that, you're going to be in trouble because he's a matchup nightmare. So, but yes, to your point, I think he's down so far low because of the positional value and where people hold running backs, which play into these rankings for most of the bigger guys. So that's the only reason I can assume. You can't watch football and tell me Travis Etienne's not one of the top 20 football players in this year's draft. You just can't. So.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I actually, Sully, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this because since we're talking Etienne, I made a comp, like an NFL comp to a buddy. This was way early on. I think it was last season. I said, Etienne reminds me a lot of Alvin Kamara.
He does. He really does.
When I see him, it's because Kamara had those same issues, right? Trying to bounce off tackles as opposed to taking the easy 5-yard sort of plays. Was really a huge receiving threat out the backfield, but you're he's got to get more comfortable in between the tackles, that kind of thing, and finding his holes. You put Etienne in the right offense, and I think that he can be that Kamara type, or even like a James Robinson, right, from Jacksonville. I think that he's like a mold like that.
I think if you give him an Alvin Kamara role, he will thrive in that role. Yeah. That kid could catch 12 passes a game easy and love it.
I was curious why people have him rated below Najee Harris. What does Najee Harris do better than him?
A lot. Najee Harris is other than being a home run threat or anything like that. I think Najee Harris is the better kind of runner. Because he can run through the tackles. He will carry the ball 25 times a game if you need him. He's also, I think he's, not to, separate him completely from Travis Etienne's catching ability. Najee Harris is a baller receiver. The guy is going to be a threat out of the backfield as well. PFF has a comp of Matt Forte on him. I actually think that's a great, great, great comp. I love a bigger, more physical Jesus, why can't I remember his name right now? Fucking hate me. Le'Veon Bell. He runs more violent than Le'Veon Bell, but I'm telling you, he's going to kind of bring the same ability overall. Granted, Le'Veon Bell morphed into an actual wide receiver, towards the heyday, but I think Najee Harris has that ability to be a special threat out there as well. I just think overall, Travis Etienne's ceiling, I think, as the matchup nightmare, I think is more than Najee Harris's ability as just a pure runner.
The third group is players 17 through 24. We've got Trey Lance, North Dakota State, finally on the board at 17. Rondell Moore at 18. Christian Barmore, Christian Darrisaw, Rashawn Slater, Samuel Cosme, Gregory Rousseau, and Jason Owe. And I'm sure people are going to love to hear about the Trey Lance at 17. I understand what you're saying, but I want them to hear it from you, I guess.
I'll say it again. Right now, he's a running back. He's a great running back, but he's a running back. And he can sling that tater, but he can't make decisions past his first one, and he's never really been asked to. So you don't even know if he can. And outside of first read throw, he's going to run the football. He's going to run it well, and that's why he doesn't throw interceptions, because if that first guy isn't open, he's just going to run the ball. So I just need to see it. Now, he's got special arm talent. He's a special athlete. And if you were to build a physical mold of a quarterback, you wouldn't be too far off of Trey Lance, like overall with his arm, his speed, his size, his tenacity, everything like that. You just don't know if he can actually make quarterback decisions and run an offense that's an NFL offense. So that's scary to me. And I'm never going to put a guy that I haven't seen do something like that high. Now he'll get drafted in the top 10, 100%. 100%. A GM's going to fall in love with his physical tools, but that doesn't mean he's going to be a good quarterback. So
I love Trey Lance. I've always liked Trey Lance since the first time that I saw him play, and he doesn't make mistakes. To Sully's point, it's because he'll opt to run a lot more frequently rather than make a poor passing decision. But I don't think that that's necessarily a knock. I also feel like he's a hard worker. Like, I mean, the big thing about Trey Lance is like he's the sort of person that will sit in a film room all night long, and he'll study defenses and he'll work his tail off because he takes. I think he's the type of quarterback that takes it personal when he hears things like not mature enough at the position. He's a running back, that kind of thing, and I think that sort of like that intrinsic motivator that he has is rare to see, right? Like I don't see that with Justin Fields. I see Trey Lance with that level of work ethic. I mean, maybe I'm biased, but I don't know. If I'm taking a QB project in this draft, I'm taking Trey Lance over Justin Fields because of the difference in ceiling. I think Trey Lance's ceiling is something to the effect of like a Russell Wilson. I don't see Fields as like having that kind of ceiling.
In my super early mock draft, I had Trey Lance going over Justin Fields. Even though I have them ranked differently, I think somebody will like Trey Lance more than they like Justin Fields. So I don't disagree with that take at all. I just personally, again, somebody is going to absolutely fall in love with this kid's physical tools because they're special. I mean, special. I mean, until I can see you make a read, throw, like I don't want to rank you like that high. So
yeah, it's fair. I mean, the ranking's fair. I hear you. No.
Yeah. In this segment, I actually had Rondell Moore. You had him 18th. Again, Kuiper doesn't have him ranked. McShay doesn't have him ranked. Daniel Jeremiah doesn't have him ranked. PFF has him 21st. I'm curious, why isn't he getting any love from anyone?
He didn't play. I mean, he's played, I think, like 7 or 8 games in the past 2 seasons, I think. So like that's a big issue. I just think these chess pieces are kind of what's becoming like the norm in football right now. And yes, you need like an elite outside guy and things like that. But if you have a guy who can do one thing or extremely, extremely well and is extremely dangerous at it, it can change your whole offense. And personally, I think that's what Rondell Moore is. He's just insanely special in my opinion from like just an athletic, like electric ball player. If you put the ball in his hands, he's going to do special things. He had 37 broken tackles in a single season at Purdue. Like that's insane. Like that's special stuff. He's going to go from 0 to 100 in the blink of an eye and very Tyreek Hill-esque. His whole issue is I think he's ran 6 routes past 11 yards in the past in 4 years. Like he just doesn't run downfield routes. But that's not what he does. He's very kind of limited in his route tree, but his route tree is, how do I say this? So he's not going to like run like a whole full route tree, but the route tree he does run is so elite that it like almost doesn't matter. Like his route running ability is sneaky good. You would think for a guy, it's like, oh, he runs drags or he runs slants. Like, no, like he actually is a really good, sneaky good route runner. It's just he's never been kind of asked to do that because that's not his role. That's not what he's special at. So I don't know. I think he's an elite football player, in my opinion.
I got a question about this phase too. I feel like Russo from Miami doesn't get a lot of love as an edge guy, and I don't understand why, because he's had a very good college career, and then you look at the fact that he's athletic, he's strong, he can get to the quarterback. He fits. I don't know, like he's kind of an old school type edge rusher in my opinion, and I don't know why he doesn't get more love.
I mean, I don't think he's old school is kind of the issue. Like I don't love his power game. Like I think like that's kind of where he like is faltering and like yeah, he's got this like frame that can most likely fill out and be special, but like you would think for a guy that like I mean like here's the thing, he wins on the inside, but he really doesn't win on the outside.
Right.
And that like I don't love from an edge guy obviously, but I mean you're projecting a lot. The issue with every pass rusher in this draft is you're projecting. Kwity Paye is a huge project. Jason Owe, huge project. Gregory Rousseau, huge project. The issue is all of these guys have different traits and tools that are like elite and special things that you look for in a pass rusher. So somebody's going to gamble because again, pass rushers go highly. I think Minnesota's Rousseau's sweet spot. I think he's going to do extremely well. His teammate, Jalen, God, the last name slipped me. Phillips has, I mean, skyrocketed boards. And the more tape I watch, when I'm watching Gregory Rousseau, Jalen Phillips is the guy that pops out on tape, truthfully. So, I mean, that's, I think, kind of also the difference. Like a lot of people now are falling on Rousseau and rising on Phillips. But, I mean, I don't think Rousseau like goes incredibly low. So I don't know. It's just there's not an elite edge rusher in this draft, unfortunately.
Right.
Well, another guy you had that wasn't really ranked, Kiper, McShay, Joseph all had him unranked, 36th on PFF. You have him 22nd, is Samuel Cosme. I'm curious what it is that you like about him.
He's just a big freak athlete that moves better than a guy who's 6'5", 309 should move. It's kind of just special. Like, I mean, you talk about like athletes at the tackle position and Samuel Cosme's name, obviously, rarely do their names come up, but I mean, Samuel Cosme's name never does. And it should, in my opinion. The issue with him is with a guy who started for so long and played right tackle and left tackle that you would think his technique would be better. And unfortunately, like that's where he's lacking a little bit. But again, like his positional versatility, because he's played on the right, he's played on the left, he's battle tested against, incredibly good pass rushers. He's shown that like he can block these guys. His issue is consistency. And then, sorry, I thought somebody was walking up my stairs. And then just like his stance in pass rushing protection it needs to get a lot better. But the kind of things those are teachable things. Being an athlete aren't teachable things. Moving the way he moves at the size he is aren't teachable things. So I think somebody's going to kind of like him a lot.
And then the third one I had was Jason Owe, who you have 24th, again, unranked by Kiper, unranked by Mache. Daniel Jeremiah has him 33rd. And I'm curious, you said he's a project. I mean, what are the holes in his game, and what are the odds that he actually falls into day two?
0% he falls to day two. He's only going to rise, in my opinion, because his pro day is going to, like, wow people. He's I mean, you talk about athletes playing a position. This kid's special. He's going to reportedly run in the 4.3s. And I mean, he's never going to be a guy that, you leave on like the strong side. Like he's going to be your weak side edge rusher every single time. You want him one-on-one matchup. If he gets doubled or clipped or chipped or something like that, he's probably going to lose his matchup. But I mean, his initial burst is, I mean, it's pretty undefendable. So I think teams are going to struggle with that and see that and be like, damn, that's nice. Now, the big issue with him is he's really good in a straight line. He's tough moving laterally. Who's the guy from the Jets that blew up? Vernon
Golston?
Yes, Vernon Golston. Yeah. He's very Vernon Golston-esque to me. And like that kind of special athlete playing the edge, not a technician who happens to be an athlete. So he has a high bust probability, but his ceiling's stupid, ridiculous high just because of the athlete he is on the outside.
Well, and Nick watches a lot of him at Penn State, right? So I'm curious, based on his size, the 6'5", 230, 4.3s, edge rusher, what kind of comp, if I said Javon Curse, is that a fair comp?
No, he's not. He's not a Javon Curse. And the thing that hurts him, in my opinion, and to your point, I've watched a lot of Penn State football in my life. The thing that hurts him is Penn State was just terrible. I mean, he was part of a terrible, terrible Penn State defense. That Parsons sat out. They just really underwhelmed. They never replaced Lobo's production from like from an edge rush standpoint. Gross Matos is who I'm talking about.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't even think that he's got like. I don't think that he's got that kind of potential. I think he's got that kind of potential. I think he can be like a Yetter, but I don't think that he could be. I mean, Javon Curse is high. Is really really high praise. He is athletic. He's a young kid. You saw the potential in him, but he wasn't. I mean, he wasn't at Penn State long, and when he was at Penn State, it was like. He was part of some really bad defenses, so it was hard to really pinpoint where his strengths were, if that makes sense.
Honestly, I mean, he's very – now Josh Allen was a much, much, much better football player overall, but he's very Josh Allen-esque to me, the kid who came out of Kentucky.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like where he needs his game to be. Penn State made him like – play the run a lot more and dropped him back a lot more and didn't let him just attack because that's not who he is. He's a passive football. He's not a very aggressive football player, but the kid looked really good in space. He had, he had like a 90 run grade this year. Like he has the ability to be a maybe a strong side linebacker and if he evolves his game, but and then maybe drop down to a pass rusher on third down. But like he would have to evolve his game a little bit. But I think he has that scary athletic ability that you just kind of want on your football team. So I think he's going to go pretty high.
Yeah, I think he's going to have a hard time in coverage at the NFL level.
I do as well.
I think as like an outside guy, and that's something that I picked up too. Is Penn State was just terrible in pass coverage, especially this past season, but. He's going to have a hard time with like more physical tight ends. He's going to have a hard time with those quick, shifty slot guys.
Well, yeah, he doesn't move well laterally. So
right. So I think that it's tough, but he can fill out. He's a young guy. He can still fill out and get a little bit stronger.
The last 8 players that we have ranked here, we have Elijah Vera Tucker, Jalen Phillips, J.C. Horn, Wyatt Davis, Nick Bolton, Zaven Collins, Kadarius Toney, and Rashad Bateman, I guess, round out the top 32. And talk to me, about these 8 guys.
This is a group that, it was tough because a lot of these guys, I think, actually kind of go higher. But, it's like Elijah Vera Tucker. Everything I like read and see is teams are loving this kid. He played tackle at USC, but most likely he'll play guard, but obviously that positional versatility is something people are going to love. And he just doesn't allow sacks on the inside. His pass rushing or his pass protecting ability is scary good for such a young player. Jalen Phillips, we talked about, he's skyrocketing boards right now. The kid just pops out on tape and is an incredible player. J.C. Horn's going to go higher than I have him ranked, most likely. You don't play that well in the SEC and not go really high. So I expect him to go extremely high as well. This is actually it's a pretty kind of loaded draft. There's quite a bit of actually graded first round talents in this draft. Like last year you got a big board of 32. Well, only 20 or 25 of those guys may be actually graded as first round talents. In this draft, I'm struggling to not find first round talents 1 through 32 at this point.
The question I have, obviously, I would be remiss without asking about my favorite player in this draft, the destroyer of worlds, Wyatt Davis, who you have 28th. Again, Kuiper unranked, McShay unranked, Daniel Jeremiah unranked, PFF 35th. All the mock drafts I've seen have him going in that mid-20s range. I've actually seen a few that have him in the second round. We talk about him, and you said the guy, you can't get him off balance. He's unbelievable, and he gets his hands on you, you're completely done. You're out of the play. So what is it why would teams look at him so low or value him so low?
I can't answer that. I truly can't. I'm as a pure guard prospect. I think he's tremendous, elite. It's scary good. Like, the only thing, like, I guess I could say is, like, you could stunt him sometimes. He's his awareness and his ability, like, once he does get a hold of you, you've lost. You've lost. The play's over. Move on to the next one. So teams will stunt him. They'll force a guy in front, have him get that guy, and then stunt around him. And when his responsibility is to take that stunner, but he's so locked in and tenacious that he a lot of times will miss that. But again, I love the kid. I love this kid. He's one of my biggest crushes in this draft. If you need offensive line help, I take Wyatt Davis before I take. Now, what's funny is I have Wyatt Davis ranked below Samuel Cosme. I'd take Wyatt Davis over Samuel Cosme every day of the week.
And Nick, you've seen him in the Big East, right? Or the Big Ten.
Big Ten. Yeah. He's powered through Penn State for quite a few years. Yeah.
He has. Yeah. He is impressive. I don't understand why he's got such a low draft grade. I think the only reason for that, and to Sully's point previously, is there is some good offensive line prospects in this draft, and I think that's the only reason that's dropping, that I would say are probably better athletes overall. But as far as being like a in the trenches type guy, I just reiterate everything that Sully said. I mean, you can't, once he gets his hands on you, you move on to the next play, because you're not going to go through the guy. It's going to be difficult for you to get around him. I think it's such a good draft for offensive line talent. That's what's really knocking him down. The big one for me, I don't know if, Wayne, you were going to bring this up, and I don't want to steal your thunder, but Rashad Bateman. I look at Bateman as like a guy who he's going to drop to a team like Kansas City or Green Bay, and they're going to scoop him up, and he's going to be an elite wide receiver in those offenses.
Man.
I can see it happening. That's all I'm saying is I can see it happening. At this point in 2020, I get that. The whole, people have been knocking him for it, but
I don't love the route tree for a guy his size either. A lot of his production, I think, was schemed production in college, and I don't love that. I don't know. The thing where I think he has a chance to succeed is after the catch. He's scary good. I mentioned Rondell Moore's broken tackles. He's got 36 or 37 as well, which, as a receiver is tremendous. He has succeeded from the inside and the outside. He can play slot. He can play outside. It's more, again, like I said, his package. I feel like it was so schemed. Like whoever was that number one, Tyler Johnson, stepped in and assumed that role and was this crazy productive receiver. And Rashad Bateman stepped in and assumed this role and was this crazy productive receiver. Minnesota schemes that player that they deem as their number one guy. They give him like 80% of targets and things like that. So his production is what worries me. What I see on the field is nice. It's great. I don't actually disagree with the take, because if he ends up with somebody like New Orleans, who I think could replace Emmanuel Sanders at this point, who they just released, or somebody like that, that would be scary, because I can.
He won't be the focal point. He won't be the focal point, but he'll be so productive in those kind of, like, he's not going to take away from Devante Adams. He's not going to take away from Tyreek Hill. He's not going to take away from Michael Thomas, but he's going to thrive off those guys.
Exactly. Think of like Reggie Wayne, I guess, to Marvin Harrison, like an equally successful player in every aspect. So that's 100% true. He may run a 4.6 is also going to be his problem. So, and in this day and age, that number means a lot to a lot of these GMs.
Well, the big name that you didn't have on your board, Mel Kiper has him 12th overall, is Mack Jones out of Alabama. And I'm curious, a lot of teams, I see him in the 30s for everybody else, but it's, I don't know if it's just because he played at Alabama. Like, does he not have the arm strength? Like, why don't people have him as a first round graded talent?
I feel like I could have had a semblance of success in Alabama's offense this season. I legit, no lie, I could have led that team to at least one win, at least one. And if that's the case, like, I don't know, it's just, I mean, you couldn't paint a more ideal situation for a quarterback than what Mack Jones had at Alabama. I mean, he is loaded at talent on the offense. 3 of his offensive linemen, 4 probably are going to get drafted. It's just like, he was in a very special situation. He has all the tools, and I see it. It's just, I don't know, like, I've never seen the kid, like, deal with adversity. And, like, I don't know, I feel like that's a big thing for me. Like, I want to see that. Like, and normally you would say a kid that succeeds like this out of the SEC, this and that. But, like, man, even through the SEC, like, he never really kind of had a struggle or an issue that was like, all right, like, that's what, like, I want. Now, you're going to love this one. PFF's comp for him is Derek Carr, which honestly, I don't hate that comp. I think he'll be a serviceable quarterback. I don't know if he's ever going to be a guy that leads you to a championship. Let me say that. I don't think Mack Jones can lead your, like, football team, like, as himself. Like Trevor Lawrence is the type of player that can win you a championship. He himself, can win you a championship with the right talent around him. Mack Jones, to me, it appears, kind of needs a loaded offense. As Nick Peeve would say, he needs a Tom Brady kind of built team. I think for Mack Jones to succeed. So
I'd agree. Yeah, I was actually, you stole my thunder because I was going to say,
Tom Brady.
He doesn't, but it's not a knock, right?
No,
like he's a game manager. If you give him talent, and you give him the ability to, like, you're not putting him in a situation where he has to gun the ball downfield because he's playing down all the time. I mean, he's going to be able to get the ball out. He's got a quick release. He's very accurate. I mean, he was almost 80%. Pass accuracy last season. I mean, that's impressive. What was it, like 77, 78% pass accuracy? It's like, I mean, that's insane. I think
76.6.
Yeah, here's my take on Mack Jones. If you need a quarterback in this draft, because you're not going to get Trevor Lawrence. So if you need a quarterback in this draft who is most NFL ready, he's the most NFL ready guy. I think over Zach Wilson, I think you can just take him and drop him into an offense. Now, that offense has to have pieces, to your point. It has to have protection. It has to have pieces. But he's ready to run an NFL offense more so than anybody not named Trevor Lawrence. That's my take on Mack Jones. I think whoever gets him late is going to get a steal.
I actually don't disagree with that. I think he is probably one of the more NFL ready, probably the second. Just because I do think Zach Wilson has some things to work on. But again, I think he'll need a special situation. I think Pittsburgh is nice for him. I think New Orleans is nice for him.
Yeah.
A lot of teams in the background. If Seattle is really, truthfully serious about moving on from Russell Wilson, maybe they grab him at the back end. Somebody like that. I'll tell you what, though, 15 to New England, I know that's a hot pick. I think that's way too early for Mack Jones, personally. I think that's too early for him. If they can move back to 25 or 22, something like that, I think that's a good spot for him. But, man, 15, because I think you can probably get a guy like maybe a Patrick Surtain, maybe a Micah Parsons, maybe a Gregory Rousseau, somebody like that. Even if one of these receivers starts to tumble, you never know in the draft. So 15, I think, is just a little too high for Mack Jones.
But would it surprise you to see Belichick grab a guy like Mack Jones at 15?
No, not at all.
Exactly.
I truthfully think I don't, because, I mean, he is Mack Jones's, Bill Belichick's, I think, kind of like quarterback that he wants. He fits
Jimmy G.
He's a smart player who's going to run an effective offense. He's not going to make a ton of mistakes. He's an elite, accurate short level passer. Crazy elite or accurate short area passer. So, he's able to make quick reads and make decisions at the line of scrimmage. I mean, that's Bill Belichick's best quarterback in a nutshell. So I wouldn't be shocked, but again, if Bill was able to do something like he does, move to 19, pick up a second rounder or something like that, and then take him at 19, that settles a lot better in my stomach than it does at 15.
And let's play this hypothetical too now. So now all of a sudden, Bill Belichick identify a guy like Mack Jones to drop into the offense. So Patriots, in my opinion, have already beefed up their offensive line, so the pass protection's there. The run protection's always been pretty good. The pass protection's there now. At this point, all you need is you need to go out and get guys like Curtis Samuel. You need to go out and maybe make a splash on a guy like Juju. or you go out and you get a guy like Will Fuller. I mean, I don't think the Patriots will do something like that, but all of a sudden you're starting to sprinkle in talent, those guys that can get separation quickly, and Mack Jones can just dump it off to him and let them yak it up.
Curtis Samuel would be such a great pickup for that team.
I did see in some reports from Boston writers. They said that Bill Belichick is willing to spend the majority of his cap money on wide receiver in this offseason. Like that's his number one priority.
And imagine that. Imagine that a guy like Jonnu Smith, Curtis Samuel, all of a sudden in that offense, and you drop a guy like Mack Jones in, who reads the game so well, who makes quick decisions, who makes good decisions, doesn't make a lot of mistakes. I mean, all of a sudden that Patriots team is pretty good. I
actually like the idea of adding Jonnu and Everett from the Rams, the two of them. Great.
Yeah, I like Jared. I mean, Everett's, that special. The only issue is they just went so tight end heavy in the second round that to invest again in a tight end and probably have to sign him for not crazy money, but money. That's just ugh.
Well, again, I mean,
he's terrible
Jonnu
blocking.
Smith or David Asiasi.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, but I mean, I don't I couldn't say I watched enough Patriots games to tell you how David Asiasi and I couldn't even tell you the other guy's name at this point played. But again,
Dalton Keene,
when you invest, I actually liked Dalton Keene a lot coming out. When you invest that high capital, at that position, I don't know, it doesn't make sense to then invest again in free agency. Use that money to spend on your tackle or your guard that you're most likely going to lose. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I like Wyatt Davis at 15 more than I like Mack Jones at 15.
Wyatt Davis so much.
I have a question for Sully because I'm curious because at the beginning of the season, a lot of folks had him as the number one tight end in the draft over Pitts.
Yeah,
I was going to ask you about the Penn State guy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously Penn State was terrible, so that hurt his draft stock tremendously. But long term, what sort of player? Give me an NFL comp on Freiermuth.
Oh God,
because I have one in my head, so I'm curious as to what you're thinking.
I like Jason Witten, a little bigger Jason Witten, maybe. I don't know, God. I like a poor man's George Kittle too, I guess.
I like that. Yeah.
Because I don't think his blocking, he's going to step in and be probably one of the better blocking tight ends in the league and one of the more physical tight ends in the league. And yet he still can run a route tree. So anybody that can kind of do that, he's going to be an all around tight end in my opinion. And I mean, he's fallen because of Pitts, but I mean, I think he's still the number 2 tight end by a long way. I don't think he comes off in any way. He's not a special athlete. He's not going to wow you in that way, but I don't know. He's such a savvy receiver. He knows the little tricks to get open at the top of routes. He knows creative ways to get open and things like that. He knows how to use his body and his frame. So I think he's going to be an extremely productive player in the NFL. So.
Yeah, and I think for me, the comp that I was thinking of was Ertz.
Yeah, I don't hate Ertz.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, I think he can block better.
I agree. I agree. And Ertz is a little bit more athletic.
Yeah, I agree. So a little less athletic, but a lot more physical. Oh, see you, Wayne.
See you, Wayne. But what hurts, I think too. The other thing is what hurts Freiermuth is because he's following in the footsteps of Gesicki.
Yeah, but I mean, I love Gesicki.
So do I, but I'm saying when you see that level of athleticism, when you see that level of athleticism come out of that position at that school, all of a sudden that's sort of where your benchmark is. Yeah. And Freiermuth isn't that.
He's also got the dropsies. I think he's got 8 drops in his career, which I mean it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're only catching 100 or so balls, you've got to cut that percentage down a bit. But I mean, I think he's a strong player and I really expect a lot of good things out of him. So, I mean,
yeah, I think he'll be a good pick in the second round for somebody.
I do too. I think he should go kind of a little high in the second round. I'd take him pretty decently up there. again, I just think like he's just anytime you can do multiple things, like I think like you're going to excel. And tight end isn't exactly a strong class this year, so it's not like there are a ton of guys who are jumping off the board. Brevin Jordan's a stupid, crazy athlete and is probably going to go pretty high, but outside of him and Fiermuth and Pitts, like there's not really a ton of guys that really excite you at that position. So I think somebody's going to want to grab one, because it's all about like, what can I get later for the same value in the draft? And you're not going to get a Fiermuth in the 4th round. You're just not. Right. You're not going to find that guy. So you've got to take him in the 2nd kind of thing.
Yeah, and I look at him as being one of those guys that can like immediately step into a team that's got like a young 100%. Quarterback. I mean, especially like a team with a young quarterback, because he's smart. He'll make, like you said, he puts himself in good spaces to make catches, and he blocks. I mean, he blocks his butt off. So I think having a guy like that for like one of the younger quarterbacks, whether it be like a Joe Burrow or even like a Jacksonville, right? I love that ceiling. Curious what other guys you think could go 1st round that are projected 2nd round.
Ooh,
I know that's kind of a loaded question, but I do want to get
it is.
Because there's people that have Etienne going in the 2nd round.
Yeah, which I mean, he very well could. Man, that's a tough question. I mean, I know like Trevon Moehrig, I've got rated as, I knew I had to bring this guy up. I've got him rated as 13th overall. I've seen him go as low as, middle of the 2nd round.
Right.
So I guess him, like we talked about Javon Highland and things like that. And him being very high. I don't know, but so I would say him. A lot of these pass rushers that I don't have ranked in the top 32, Azeez Ojulari, God, he's slipping my name. Oh, Carlos Basham, Quincy Roche, a lot of these guys, Joe Tryon are like rising these boards, and like pass rushers get drafted earlier than their ranking. Because they're hard to find. So I think they've got a lot of shots to go. Joseph Osai, things like that, but it's tough to pinpoint one guy. It's so early still. We haven't seen enough of the pro day results and this faux combine and things like that.
All right. Last question that I want to ask Sully. Sorry, Wayne, but you were gone for a little bit.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Last question. How would you rank as far as like overall volume of talent by position in this draft? Like what would be like your top 5? Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, no, I do. I know what you're asking.
Okay.
So I would say quarterback is 1. I think Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson pushed that pretty high up. And then also there is a lot of talent in Mack Jones and Justin Fields and Trey Lance.
Kellen Mond.
And I'm a massive Jamie Newman fan. So a lot of these guys I think have the ability to do pretty well. So I've got that one pretty high. Wide receiver is probably 2 for sure. There's, loaded wide receiver talent this year. Cornerback, I think, is kind of deep. But at the top, I think it kind of falls in the middle rounds. But you've got J.C. Horn. I'm a big Tyson Campbell fan. You've got the 2 guys at the top. So there, and then tackle.
Yeah.
Tackle offensive line, I think, is the other one that's just stacked this year. We didn't talk about any of them, but Christian Darrisaw, Rashawn Slater, we talked about Samuel Cosme, I lied. Elijah Vera Tucker, Wyatt Davis, all these guys. Then there's the guys that I really didn't even get to. God, where's he at? Adrian Early, Liam Eichenberg, the kid from Notre Dame, is finally bringing his name out. Alex Leatherwood, Walker Little, all of these guys, Jalen Mayfield, all of these guys legit have a shot at going in the 1st round, just because of their positional value and things like that. And so I think offensive line / offensive tackle has a shot at being the deepest too.
Yeah, that's fair. I'd rank it. To me, I'd rank it very similar. It's funny because I made the comment, Sully, and you kind of scoffed at it initially about the Jets, how they should consider taking Sewell with the 2nd pick to protect Sam Darnold. And I was thinking that because long term, it's like, oh, all right, if you screw it up, Darnold's going to be a project anyway. If you draft a quarterback, it's going to be a project anyway, and you're just starting from scratch either way, was my logic. But then I'm thinking, like, this quarterback class is so good. It's like, how often does this happen?
Exactly. That's my point. Like, this doesn't happen where you get a guy like Zach Wilson to fall to you at 2. Zach Wilson's number 1 in a lot of other drafts. He goes ahead of Justin Herbert every single time. I don't know. Yeah. I wouldn't have him ahead of Joe Burrow, but it's like special. Now, I get it. Like, next year's got a lot of special talent, and Spencer Rattler and the kid from USC that I can never remember his name, but I fucking love him.
I know exactly who you're talking about. I can't think of his name either.
And then Sam Howell coming out of North Carolina that we talked about. So like next year does have a lot, but what if they don't come out? Like, what if they say, no, I'm not, you don't know. So if you're in the position to draft a Zach Wilson, I take him. Now, if you're able to move down to 4 with Atlanta and still get Penei Sewell and then get some picks, I don't hate that strategy. I don't. And then see what you have in Sam Darnold. But then again, if he succeeds, do you pay him $35 million or $30 million and then not draft a quarterback next year? There's just a snowball effect there, I think. So, but I mean, I've got Penei Sewell rated number 2 overall. So clearly I love the guy. So
yeah. It's just crazy to me. This quarterback draft is crazy to me because, to your point, you could have a guy like Kellen Mond. You could have a guy like even Trask. I don't think so, but you could have a guy like Trask end up being the second best quarterback in this draft.
Easy.
Like 100%. It's just like in hindsight, right? Like 5 years from now, it could definitely look that way. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is literally a generational talent. So yes. I mean, it's tough to compare.
Yeah, of course.
But I think anybody else, it literally could be second to that generational talent.
And what's wild is, like, you're going to have your Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, who are most likely all going to go top 10. Then Mack Jones, probably even Kellen Mond are going to sneak into the first. But then you're going to have Kyle Trask, Jamie Newman, these other guys going in the second round too. Like legit, you may have 9 or 10 quarterbacks drafted in the first 2 rounds this year, which is insane to think. Like, that's just wild for me to think.
Yeah, for sure.
I wanted to throw an idea at you, which is a pre-draft rumor I read. I kind of liked it, which was, so last year, remember the Patriots were kind of shopping Stefan Gilmore, right? Because this is the last year of his deal.
30 years old.
30 years old. I mean, he's still really, really, really
still
good.
elite.
Oh, yeah. Still elite, but he's 30 years old.
He's going to hit his cliff soon.
And kind of a bargain at 13.5. I mean, because with whatever guy's getting.
But you're going to have to re-sign him, and he's probably going to want more than 13.5.
So
you're going to have to sign him into 34, 35 years old.
The trade that I saw pitched around, and again, I liked it, was Stefan Gilmore to Cleveland for OBJ.
I hate that.
You get an elite number 1 receiver,
Is OBJ an elite number 1 receiver because he's never on the field?
Well, I know, but that's why you're getting him for so cheap, essentially.
Him and Bill seem like the worst match in heaven.
I thought Cam and Bill seemed like the worst match.
No, because Cam's work ethic is different. OBJ is a lazy, that's like been his moniker, not a great team guy. Shit, Jarvis Landry, his best friend in the whole world, doesn't even care if he stays on the team. You know what I mean? Like that should be like a big.
Right, that's true.
Like, so, I mean, I don't know. I don't love that. Also, I mean, I don't see why they would do that. They've got Denzel Ward, who's arguably the best young corner in the league right now. So I don't know if, and they're going to have to pay him buku money. So I don't think I don't see why they would get into a huge contract with Stefan Gilmore when they're going to have to pay Denzel Ward crazy money.
OBJ is the worst contract. OBJ is the worst contract in the NFL, in my opinion. Everyone laughed at the Giants for that trade to Cleveland. They were like, what the hell are they doing? They just invested so much money in this guy, blah, blah, blah. They didn't get much of a return. And all of a sudden now the Giants defense was actually legit based on that trade. They got some draft pieces that were actually legit based on that trade. And OBJ is just, I mean, to Sully's point, he's an absolute cancer. He's like this generation's Antonio Brown.
He really is just, and it's crazy to watch because, I mean, nobody will argue that he's not talented and not a crazy good player when he's on the field. But, like, I mean, he's like, to Nick's point, he's rarely on the field and he's a cancer to the locker room and the team. So it's like, I don't know. I want those guys as far away as possible.
Yeah, I hate that for New England. I can't see it. I mean, I can't see it happening either. I actually hate the fact that Saquon Barkley has built his like rehab schedule around working out with OBJ. I think that's, I mean, talk about toxic. Last thing Saquon needs.
True.
Well, that was the big board episode. We certainly hope you appreciated it, and we hope you guys continue to download. We are getting, over 100 downloads, actually over 300 downloads per month. So we certainly appreciate you guys doing that. This past 30 days, has actually been close to 1,000 downloads. So if you guys are listening, I mean, feel free to reach out to us. We definitely like the interaction. I mean, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Where you can find us has been at the bottom right of the screen for the whole show. You can find us there. YouTube, you can comment on the YouTube videos. People love to trash Nick for that. I try to kind of fuel that fire when I can.
Yeah, you do.
Hate the board, man. I'll argue with you. Hate the board. Come at me with why Devante Smith should be ahead of Jamar Chase. You'll be wrong, but come at me.
Yes, that's
I wouldn't do it.
So that is the show. Kenny, where are we at with the show today?
We're gonna get this right.
We are. Whoops, there we go. Dang it.
Ladies and gentlemen.